In this video, we will be tasting and talking about batch 118 of the EcoCha Tea Club, a first pick Shan High Mountain Oolong tea from Taiwan. Batch 118 of the EcoCha Tea Club is a first pick Shan High Mountain Oolong tea from Taiwan, harvested in spring 2025. First pick meaning that it was the very first harvest of from this new plot of tea planted 2 years ago, and we went up for the occasion and got to walk up. It was only accessible by walking through a certain section of forest. They're still in the process of establishing some sort of farm vehicle access path / road. But it was really beautiful to walk up there and see the new trees growing with the vigor of new life in them. And they didn't want to stress out the new trees. Evidently it's important, especially in the early spring growth, to just let them do what they need to do in their growing process. So they initially were going to harvest at the beginning of their spring harvest season. They decided to allow the plants to gain their strength some, and went ahead and harvested the rest of their big, mature plots of tea, and came back and did this on one of the last days, I believe, second to last day out of several days. As we saw on the farm, the new growth was quite long. The trees are really just going for it and trying to put forth vegetation in order to establish, life on that ground. And it was really beautiful. The leaves were just very pert and full in every way in their presence and appearance. When they were picked, they were still in their V shape. They hadn't opened fully, which means that they didn't go into that secondary kind of vegetation stage where they become more fibrous and less juicy. But they were definitely fully grown. And we can see that in both the dried tea leaves. They're uniform in color. There are some bigger chunks, they're not that big, but yeah, it makes sense because we saw them on, there was probably, almost 6 inches or at least 4 inches of new growth that was picked, because the stems were all still very tender. So you basically just pick what has grown within the last 50 days or so. And so, yeah, new leaf, fully grown, still juicy. And the only challenge, well, I shouldn't say the only challenge, there's probably a string of them that I'm not acknowledging, but the obvious challenge for the tea artisans, the people who crafted these leaves, cured them, was that there was a considerable amount of stem material, and that's where the moisture is. Like the moisture is easily depleted from the leaf. It gets basically sucked out of the leaf into the stems during the wilting and drying process. But it's harder to get all the moisture out of the stems. So the first step in facilitating that is to let the leaves wilt sufficiently, like to get depleted of moisture, which sets them up for more significant oxidation, which did happen in these leaves. They were more significantly oxidized than your typical high mountain oolong tea, with the idea that they wanted to get a uniform effect over a larger surface area. And then the second aspect of their approach in curing these leaves most efficiently was to expose them to a higher temperature and or a longer time in the tumble heating kill green phase to deplete them of that moisture and fix them in the most uniform way that they could. So the result was a slightly more oxidized oolong tea, and with a sort of a more fixed character. It's a little bit more like a traditional oolong in that respect. They wanted to make sure that they weren't left with leaves that were partially well processed and partially still green. So they were reducing the green factor by basically stir frying them or tumble heating them as it is, more sufficiently, more fully. Okay, I want to sip. The brewed tea is also indicative of the oxidation and that kind of more dried fixing that they went through. It's just more golden, slightly a deeper gold than your typical high mountain tea, which is kind of like this yellow, greenish, bright appearance. So this is looking like the tea we often see in Lugu. Even if it's high mountain, people like to make it a little more oxidized. All right, let's have a sip. Every time I drink it, I think of sweet corn on the grill, actually, like grilled with the husks still on. So you get like that slightly seared factor, but not really. The corn is protected. It's just the leaves or the husks get seared. But it's definitely like a slight bit of singe there, and then sweetness, really kind of full sweetness. And there's a fragrant quality in the leaf, but it's not. It's definitely not green like vegetal green, and it's not flowery to me either. It's sweeter and it's a little bit denser than green and flowery, basically. I did basically a 1 to 15 leaf to water ratio. I think it was 12.3 grams of tea in this 180 milliliter pot. I wanted to let the leaves open up fully in the first brew, so I went for 1 minute 20 seconds on the first brew, 80 seconds, and then I dropped it down to 50 seconds on the second brew, 60, 70, and back up to 80. It's definitely pretty strong. I typically go 1 minute 10 seconds for the first brew to open up the leaves. Yeah, that packs a punch there. Let's see how the second brew goes. Yeah, I'd say I brewed it just a little bit too long on the first brew. Second brew is kind of lighter and more balanced, but less densely concentrated. I feel like it's more flavorful. Sign of a good tea is when you have to clear your throat. It instantly does something like it makes this salivation happen, and I think it's a kind of cleansing thing. Buttery, I think of artichokes also sometimes. It's not quite that vegetal for me. It's definitely sweet, and corn is the closest thing. Really like fresh, tender baby corn is the prominent flavor note that comes to my mind. I'm not saying that tea tastes like corn. It's pretty impossible, but we know what our brains do when we drink tea because it has that magical mix of chemical compounds that conjures all kinds of stuff. I'm liking these later brews, a little bit more delicate. So what's special about the first harvest? Other than that it's a momentous occasion, there's a new plot of tea in Taiwan's most prestigious tea growing area, which is a rare event in itself. Our friend who leased this plot of land and invested in planting a whole new plot of tea said that it hadn't been farmed in almost 30 years. And it was basically a small forest again that needed to be cleared. So the soil is, it's not virgin soil, but it's the soil that hasn't been farmed in over 20 years for sure. So, and it was just, you could see, like they had to clear, there was clear border of forest on all four sides, but as we walked up into it, it's a long strip going way up a slope. And they replanted maple trees, so those growing up, they're still quite small, probably only 5 feet high. It's going to be beautiful up there as the whole farm develops and kind of just comes to fruition, and it already is. We got to take a sack of tea down the mountain to help in the process of getting the picked leaves off the mountain as soon as possible. It was just really fun to be up there. Shan is always a wonderful experience. You're up over 2,000 meters and the air is fresh and clean and there's just that high mountain vibe. And then the factory is up at 2,600 meters, the highest elevation tea factory on the island of Taiwan. Our friends who we source our Shan from are of the conviction that, well, first of all, it's a big new factory with a lot of space, and that's not easy to come to basically reserve during the peak season of harvest, because everyone's harvesting their tea at the same time. So they have an agreement with the manager of that factory that they can come process their leaves there seasonally. But it's also, it's way up there and the climate is quite different. So for depleting the leaves of moisture specifically, that first solar withering step, they think that that climate is unique compared to anywhere else that you're gonna spread your leaves out and let the sun do its thing. Okay, I wanna run through these one more time. So we wanted to be a part of this momentous occasion of procuring our share of the first pick from this new plot of tea. And the way it came out is definitely unique. It's not really representative of a Shan High Mountain Oolong tea. It's quite different. But that's cool with us. I mean, it's a singular batch, right? And it's got the one thing that the tea dealers were really anxious to taste and confirmed upon tasting is that the substance is there. That everyone, it's kind of a given fact, or at least an acknowledgement that the very first harvest or within the first year of harvest, when the trees are new and really going for survival, they have constituents within the leaves that are unique. Once they're more established with a root system, and I guess things change, plants are very sensitive beings, and so they adjust according to their really immediate circumstance. I find it really satisfying. It's clean, it's got this clean finish, but there's a lot of flavor on the palate, and it's the prominent quality for me is sweet, and sweet with a dry finish. I'm not gonna keep saying roasted corn, but that's what I think every time I take a sip. Yum. There we have it. First pick, Shan High Mountain Oolong Tea, Spring 2025. Very small batch, by the way. And so we were happy to get our share. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next month.